Good morning. Welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. And we are going to continue answering questions from the jar. Well, I'm going to continue answering a question from the jar. These questions come from a variety of resources. They come from people who ask me a question directly. They come indirectly through me by people who asked other people questions. And they come through a good old search on the net is what is a good spiritual question to ask. And again, I use the term spiritual very loosely. I use it in my own life, but when I'm sharing, I tend to use it loosely because I don't want people to get confused, and I don't want people to assume that this is all about stuff that is not necessarily spiritual. When I say spirit, I'm talking about the deeper essence of who we are, the higher consciousness, this witness or observer who watches and notices, observes what we as these little entities we call me are experiencing. So that to me is spiritual. So getting in touch with that essence of who we are is the goal of what I would call a spiritual practice. And there's really nothing woo-woo about it. It's very practical in the way that it can help us heal and live happier and fuller lives. So that being said, I answer a question related to those topics to do my best within a 10-minute time frame. I set a timer and I attempt to answer it. I am by no means an expert, and the only reason why I'm sharing is pretty well selfish. I learn through teaching, and I teach through learning. So they go together for me. They're one and the same thing. So as I answer the question, I want you to bear that in mind, that I am not an expert. And the real expert, you're going to find a variety of masters out there who've ascended and who have reached a higher level of understanding, which I am nowhere near at. But the most important person you want to get, or the most important being you want to be in contact with, is that one inside of you. So anything I say or do here is mostly a pointer for you to look directly inside yourself. Observe your own mind, observe your reactions, observe how you're responding to life, and make the changes should they need to be made accordingly. That being said, I will reach into this trusty container of many, many questions. I will maybe steer from the top a little bit. I'm going to look at the question quickly to make sure that I have not read it before, because sometimes they get back in there. Okay. And I will set the timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to take a deep breath, just kind of ground so that it's the higher, wiser part of me that's answering, and not my ego who thinks it knows everything when it knows nothing. And the question that I'm answering is, do you call yourself a Buddhist? Do you call yourself a Buddhist? The last question I had something to do with, do I see myself as a New Age hippie? Now I got another question referring to a label. Do you call yourself a Buddhist? I don't like to call myself anything. I am learning how limiting labels and names and categories are, and how we tend to like to put everything neatly as human beings into these categories so we can understand them. But I'm not a big fan. I don't think I ever was a big fan of labels, but especially not now. And do I call myself, would I use the label of Buddhist to define myself even if I did believe in labels and tend to do labels? And the answer is no. I would not call myself a Buddhist. I am enthralled with Buddhist teachings, and from the Four Noble Truths to the Third Sun Patriarch. I just think the teachings are amazing, practical things. So they've been devised thousands of years ago. They still can apply so easily into this lifetime, into this experience. So I think they are amazing, and I think everybody on this planet should read and study the Buddhist Sutras, or listen to somebody who teaches Buddhism and teaches the Dharma. Do I call myself a Buddhist though? No, I have never been ordained as a Buddhist. And the Buddhist religion is, loaded with tradition and lineage. the patriarchs, for example. So it's something you're ordained in and you practice and you follow through. If I have not done that, I wouldn't have the discipline to do that probably. And most Dharma teachers are people who have practiced and spent a lot of times in monasteries learning how to teach and offer the truths and the teachings of the Buddha. I have not been in a monastery, and and I do not, even though I sometimes refer to some Buddhist things, I can never call myself a true Dharma teacher as either for that reason. So, no, I am not a Buddhist. I am not a Hindu. I am not any of those things. I don't even call myself the secular things that many other people would use to refer to me as a writer or a poet or a teacher or whatever. I don't even tend to ascribe to those labels either. I do write poetry. I do write. I do teach. But I don't consider myself, I don't limit myself to those labels, nor do I ever allow my ego to think that it can, prescribe to those things. It's not, because those are ego things, I suppose, and I'm trying to do away with my ego as much as possible. I think that religion, as wonderful as it is, organized religion, and it does serve an important purpose in this world. It helps keep people grounded, helps with their spiritual practices, it helps them advance further along this path. I don't even ascribe to any organized religion. I was raised Christian, Catholic to be specific, and there will always be a part of me. Though I'll always love the Mass, and I'll always, remember the Apostles' Creed until the day I die, for example, or whatever, or always feel this urge to kneel down and do so many Hail Marys after I say a swear word. I know that it is not who I am. It's basic of my conditioning, of my psyche, which is the sum total of all we are. So being brought up that is part of my conditioning, part of my psyche. But in a sense, it's in the way of me experiencing that spiritual thing that I'm attempting to experience, which is awakening and getting to the higher level of myself, the higher realization. So I don't ascribe to religion. I see the value of them. I just don't label myself as believing into this set of, because I believe in this dogma or this set of beliefs, I am such and such this, and because I believe that, I'm such and such that. I think sometimes that gets in the way of us realizing our own oneness and what we're here to do on this planet, which is make it a better place by making our minds a better place to experience the world through. The reason why Buddhism is such a great pull for me is because of this practical way it sees that all suffering, as the Buddha found out himself, leaving, the wealth and the prestige and the kingdom, his family, all the luxuries of the world behind to explore and understand suffering better. He came with a very practical realization that our wanting and our desire is the cause of all suffering. And he only found that through self-inquiry and meditation, looking inward into the inner realms of the mind and observing it and observing how he reacted and reacts to certain things. So that is pull me in because it is very practical what he has discovered. It is the essence of all truth. There is suffering in this world, and the root of suffering is our preferences and our desires and our wanting life to be a certain way. And because of that wanting, not accepting and relaxing into the way the world actually is, which has nothing to do with us. So the premise of Buddhism then is something I would definitely ascribe to, and I use it in my own learning, and I do my best to understand it. Though I do refer to it when I come here, I know I'm not a teacher of Buddhism. I'm not a Dharma teacher. And by no means do I want to show disrespect to any of those Buddhist teachers that are I have not earned that right, I guess, through my devoted practice to call myself a Buddhist, though I do love the teachings, and I do try to live my life around the precepts of the Buddhist tradition, as well as other religions as well. So I don't limit myself to Buddhism. I just think it's an amazing, amazing philosophy, if not a religion that I ascribe to. So the question is, are you a Buddhist, or do you call yourself a Buddhist? And the answer is no, I do not call myself a Buddhist. I try not to call myself anything, but I do not feel like I have the right to call myself a Buddhist, though I definitely love the Dharma, love to be in the Sangha, and I respect the teachings tremendously. Well, that's all I have to say for today. I hope you have an amazing, wonderful day, and namaste.